Hi, I'm Brennan Weir with Weedex Lawn Care, coming to you from North Texas, and today we're going to talk about lawn aeration. Today we're here to aerate this property. Prior to the aeration process, it's always our policy to do an observation checklist of the property prior to the physical act of it. We start that process even before we arrive. We start that by, placing a phone call to the homeowner prior to getting here. We usually do that before we leave our previous stop. And we want to ask a few basic questions to the homeowner to try to mitigate damage that we could do to their property or unwanted areas maybe to even aerate. The damage that we want to mitigate is, either damaging underground drip irrigation or even certain areas of their property that, might have low buried utility lines, or maybe if they have an electrical fence buried for their dog, and we want to stay away from those areas. So we like to ask them those few basic questions so that way we have a frame of reference to keep in mind of where to aerate and not to aerate, to ensure that we don't damage those issues or those underground lines on their property. So until the new sod has had a chance to really take full root mass and development, that usually takes at least a complete growing season to form that complete hardened root mass. We want to postpone that aeration until the next season. Same thing with areas that might have been damaged through insect disease or even Mother Nature the growing season prior. We don't want to aerate that because, like I said, it already has a weakened root mass or root formation, so we want to postpone that until the damage has recovered. The first part of our on-site observation process is more that's already in our literature, or something that's more set in stone, is we don't aerate the areas between the sidewalk and curb, due to the fact that all newer built homes since about 2010 have underground irrigation system called drip tubing. So with our aerators, if we were to aerate the surface here on the parkway between the sidewalk and curb, we're going to severely damage that pipe because it's just soft, not even really hardened PVC pipe that our aeration tines will puncture, and then it's a real nuisance to try to repair. The damages associated with drip irrigation can cost, be very expensive and cumbersome task to repair, as I talked about. The other problem that we run into, when we discuss drip irrigation with homeowners, is a confusion on the homeowner side of what drip irrigation actually is. As you can tell here in my hand, I have a piece of drip irrigation. This is just probably 1/2-inch pipe that is hooked onto barbed hose end fittings. So when they're doing the initial construction of their home, before they actually, like if Greg will pan in on this, before they actually lay the sod down, they come in here when it's bare soil and they install this drip irrigation right on soil surface, stake it down, hook it up to the fittings, and then they lay the sod on top of it. Our aeration tines are approximately poking into the ground and pulling plugs up to about 3 to 4 inches in depth, depending on the soil structure. So as you can understand that, it's going to do extensive damage to something that's right underneath the turf grass. And then at that point in time, if we do damage it, 9 times out of 10, not only are they just going to have to just repair certain patches of it, because we're aerating, a lot of holes, or putting a lot of holes in the soil structure in turf grass, they might have to replace all of the drip irrigation. So not only, is it expensive, is it a cumbersome task, it also can be very damaging to maybe the pristine turf grass that you and we have worked so long to manicure, get into that state. So now that we've talked to the homeowner, we've addressed with the homeowner the area in the parkway that we're not going to aerate, we also want to do another part of our on-site observation or inspection process. And how we do that is we walk the foundation line of the house to see if there's any drip irrigation. As you can tell with this house here, they do have some exposed drip irrigation line that we want to be cognizant of. Not due to the fact that, okay, if it's just along the foundation, we're not going to aerate that close to the house anyways, because we don't want to accidentally run our aeration machine into the foundation or the brick and mortar of the house, because we could cause damage to the property, the physical structure of the brick and mortar, or damage to our machine. But the reason why we want to do that on-site inspection or observation is so that we can ask a question to the homeowner, is like, is that drip line just running right along the foundation, or is it extended on past that into the side of the property? Because again, as we talked about earlier, with the drip irrigation being in the parkway, we would do the same damage here in the main part of the side yard or wherever that drip irrigation might be. Generally, we conclude our on-site inspection with just making sure that the backyard gate is unlocked. During aeration, we don't want to do the front yard and then maybe have to return 2 to 3 weeks later due to scheduling purposes to do the backyard. So we generally want to inspect to make sure that the gate is unlocked and accessible for us to get our aeration machine back there, and as well to ensure that the gate is wide enough for our aerator to fit through, because there are some residential houses that have smaller gates that our machine won't fit through, and then we're only able to aerate the front without doing the backyard, and we want to make sure the customer is aware of everything that we're doing and not doing on the property. So flagging irrigation heads prior to the aeration process is always a question that we get asked from our homeowners that we service. We always give a 2-day call ahead prior to the aeration. So, if that be like a Tuesday aeration, they'll actually get that call on a Friday, or it be a Wednesday aeration, they'll get that call on the Monday. So that way they have, the appropriate time to actually physically go into their, garage or wherever that sprinkler controller is located, turn it on zone by zone. You're going to get a little wet doing this process. It's, you can't avoid it. It's unavoidable. But all you're wanting to do is flag the irrigation head right at the, base of that head. And just so that way we know to steer clear of that area because it's a marked irrigation head. Now, this isn't a, set in stone process that you have to take. The type of aerators that we use, they're self-propelled, drum style, kind of like tillering aerators. They're not going to be like the reciprocating ones that are as damaging to the sprinkler head. 9 times out of 10, if there's an irrigation head right in the middle of the yard and it's not flagged, our aerator is going to hit it and roll right off that hard plastic without doing any damage. Now, a rule of thumb for our aeration process is we know that there's going to be sprinkler heads generally right on the edge of hardscaping like sidewalks, driveways, just because of how sprinkler systems are laid out. So we do use a rule of thumb of staying at least 3 to 4 inches away from that area. So we go ahead and mitigate the issue of maybe possibly damaging a known spot where an irrigation head is. As we're doing our on-site inspections, our technicians always carry a bundle of flags with them on their truck. Obviously they're going to be taking these flags back with them, but they're using their flags to mark valve boxes, whether they're irrigation valve box or maybe buried, utility line boxes, or your sprinkler like safety valve, backflow device, so they can mark those. Not that they can't visually see them with their eyes when they're aerating, but they're focusing on that machine, making sure that they're not hitting your house or your fence or whatever. So we want to mark the valve boxes in the lawn, so it kind of brings that to our attention. So we will walk around and mark all of the seen valve boxes. Now, I'm not going to say from time to time that there's valve boxes that the grass is covered up and we don't know that they're there, but our technicians will, come around through the property. Like you can see at this house right here, we'll pan in on this and you can actually physically see the valve box. So our technicians will put a flag indicator there to know that they need to stay away from that area. Again, not that they can't see it when they're aerating the yard, but they have that machine in front of them. They're paying attention to where it's going, making sure that they're hitting their passes right, getting correct coverage and aerating, row to row plugs. And so that way it just brings an indicator to their eye that I need to stay away from that area. So now that we've done, the initial on-site inspection of the property, we've talked to the homeowner, we've asked the questions that we need to ensure that we're mitigating any damage that we're going to do to their underground sprinkler system, their drip irrigation, or any other obstructions that might be on their property that we need to stay away from. Our next process is to unload the aeration machine and then start the aeration process. The overwhelming benefits that it has for your turf grass root system and soil structure. Aerations can help with compaction, which we get a lot of compaction throughout Texas soil structures, especially here in North Texas where we have clay-based soils. And you can't just think of compaction of your kids outside playing or your pets outside playing. Compaction can come from simple as rain. Rain is going to compact your soil as it continues to tighten up your soil structure and soil pores, especially in clay soils, as it's not very permeable and it doesn't drain very well. So aerating can definitely help with alleviate compaction. It also, can minimally help break up thatch as well, so that way you're not getting an overwhelming layer of thatch. Thatch is generally your dead plant material between your stems of the plant and the soil surface. Can be caused by, overwhelming grass clippings when you're mowing, or over fertilization, plant material dying off can increase your thatch layer. So, you know, mitigating or breaking up your thatch layer is very important, you know, for nutrient uptake, water uptake, oxygen or airflow, nutrient uptake. So it's just an overwhelmingly benefit factor as well. You know, aerations also help with drainage. As I said before, clay soils don't drain very well. They're not very permeable. It can help with nutrient uptake to your root system, as well as, you know, herbicide uptake as well, allowing that herbicide to stick in that top 1-inch layer of soil. Not only with aerating, in combination with aerating, amending your soil or top dressing can be a beneficial factor depending on how you're going to do it. You know, on the golf course side, or maybe even the sports field side, they'll top dress with sand. They're doing that for drainage, they're doing that for leveling purposes. We don't want to do that in residential lawn care. The reason behind that is okay, I have a clay-based soil structure, and then I've got a lot of little pockets of voids now throughout my lawn. If I come behind there and I add a lot more permeable soil structure down, or you know, mineral material down, now I'm going to get areas where I get hot pockets. I'm going to have just certain little indentions in my yard where the water drains really well, and other pockets of the lawn where the water doesn't drain really well. So you'll end up with hot pockets, or you'll get heat stress throughout the summer months where the water's draining really well and where the water's not, because that sand won't ever, you know, homogeneously spread throughout that soil structure. So typically when you're top dressing, you want to come back with more of like a loam material or a compost. Compost is generally recommended, so that way you're adding some organic matter to your soil structure as well, that over time throughout rainfall can deplete from your soil structure as well. Thank you for your time, and feel free to contact us at Weedex Lawn Care for any of your lawn care needs. And please remember to join our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook for lawn care tips.